5 SEO tips for beginners. Essentially, I'll just be walking you guys through 5 areas of SEO that I think that really anybody can make use of, no matter how big their website or their business is. As always, I'm joined today by our marketing manager, Natalie Brownell, who will be moderating today's webinar. And as always, just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. You will notice on your webinar dashboard that there is a section for questions, and throughout the entire deck, we really do encourage all of you to ask whatever questions really comes to mind. We have a lot of material in today's webinar, but we should have some time at the end of our presentation just for some Q&A. And just to note as well, there are a few downloads for your use that should be available as well. And lastly, the webinar is going to be recorded today, so no need for any frantic note-taking, as everything should be available for you after we close our session today. Great. So without further ado, moving on to today's agenda. So again, it's going to be 5 SEO tips, and I really wanted to keep this as actionable as possible for you guys. So I'm really focused on making sure that everyone can take away, at least one thing from today's lesson and really apply it for their business or their website tomorrow or even today, really. So the first point I want to walk you guys through is something that everyone was asking me on our last call, which were what are some of the tools that I'm using in the business. So I really want to focus on some free or freemium tools that I use almost every single day that I think that everyone can really utilize. Secondly, I'll be walking you through keyword research, how you guys should really be thinking about it, and utilizing some of the tools that I'll be covering earlier. Third, I've dedicated a tip really just for GSE, which is Google Search Console. Tons of great information and resources are available through there, so it really does warrant being a standalone tip. Specifically, I'll be covering how you should be optimizing your content with really help from Search Console. Fourth is going to be site structure. Really what is it and how should you be thinking about it as you develop your website? And lastly, it's all about structured data. What is structured data and schema? It's a great way for us to enhance our sites, especially within the SERP, where we can really affect click-through rates. Perfect. So just to start off with a quick poll, I wanted to ask you guys, what tools do you guys currently utilize for SEO? And no wrong answers here. Anything from I don't use any tools for SEO to leveraging enterprise level tools like Botify, Bright Edge, Conductor, and the like. Great, that should just about do it. It looks like from most of our questions here, most of us don't really leverage any tools, and the few of us who do are leveraging mostly freemium tools, which is perfectly fine. So moving into really just what is SEO? Obviously, it's a bread and butter question here. SEO really just does stand for search engine optimization, which is really just all about the practice of increasing not only the quantity, but really the quality of the traffic that really enters our site through organic search results. And really to optimize for that, starting with the 5 tools the 3 tools that we really do need to be leveraging almost every single day. Why do we really even start with any of the tools? So as we all know in the field, SEO, there's a lot to do here, right? There's always going to be something to do in our field, whether it's copy that can be optimized, metadata that we could tweak, technical maintenance that can be done, or really even just additional content marketing that can take place. So there's almost too many areas to be working on at any given moment, which is why we're going to be needing to leverage tools to either support, automate, or at the very least, make things just a bit easier for us as we go through our day-to-day processes. And I have some tools here on the right-hand side. I'll be covering 3 of them, starting with Keyword Planner. Probably nothing too strange or unheard of for you guys before, but Keyword Planner is available through Google Ads, and it's completely free to use. It's a great way to either discover new keywords or at the very least get some search volume and trends of keywords that we're already considering to use. So let's see an example. If we were to click the right-hand box here, get search volume and forecast, we would get this little area underneath right here. And let's just say I want to get the volume of 4 different keywords. So I would type these 4 keywords into the search box here, get a readback on their monthly search volume and their trends. And this trends area is especially important if I'm developing content around these topics. You can see the obvious fall off in the trends in the fall and the winter months for a search like this, with monthly search volume picking right back up in time for the spring and summer. So in SEO, if I am a content strategist or if I'm working alongside a social media strategist, I see this and I think, okay, I'm going to have to meet with some of the stakeholders and make sure that we have some content that's specific to fishing rods in place. So maybe an article is going to be something along the lines of best fishing rods of 2022 or best fly fishing rods for XYZ use. And I'll make sure that there's something on our content calendar way ahead of time so I can provide all the necessary SEO context. So everything from the keywords, the metadata, the H1s, some of the content blocks. And then from there, it's all about just syncing with our blog, social, and email marketing teams just to make sure that we all have a plan on how we're going to be utilizing that content in the future. So just a quick review. Keyword Planner, we're obviously going to be using this for keyword research and a special point on determining the seasonality of our keywords. So with the seasonality, we're using that to just plan out our content calendars just ahead of time. Always have a plan in place. The next tool really is going to be Google Search and one of the functions underneath it, which is just the autocomplete as well as the people also ask feature. A great tool that Google is giving us here. It just lets us see really the voice of our audience and our customers. For those of you who don't really know how it works, it really just gives us a little bit deeper into the nitty-gritty of topic selection and long-tail query creation. So whenever we're making a query, Google gives us the related searches that other people have made, which is obviously very invaluable in just determining not only what keywords our audiences are using, but how they're using it and what exactly they're looking for. So if I were to see a people also ask session that looks a lot like this on the left-hand side, it speaks to me at least, a large opportunity for knowledge base creation, blog creation, or at the very least, some content for FAQs. So if I don't have any content that addresses any of these questions on my site, I'm definitely making sure that I'm speaking with copy, that I'm speaking with creative teams to make sure that we have material like this in place. And again, this is just a fantastic opportunity to mine for long tail queries. Certainly, we see a trade-off between monthly search volume, but the trade-off comes with smaller competition. So it's a great opportunity for smaller shops to really compete with the bigger brands. So Google autocomplete, people also ask, again, it's for keyword research here. It's a great way for us to discover long tail queries, and we use that to plan out some blog articles, KB articles, or some FAQ content. Moving on to the next tool, which is Answer the Public, which is another free tool, www.answerthepublic.com. Another great resource that's similar to Google's People Also Ask or autocomplete, where we're using it to generate additional topical questions, topical keywords, long tail queries. And what this tool does is it gives us the who, what, when, where, how of our keywords. So appending any of those words to our keywords to see how people are using this keyword. So in this example here, I typed in domains and I'm getting a lot of domain related keywords back. Under the can tree right here, keywords like can domains have numbers, can domains have capital letters, can domains have underscores, all great questions that our audience definitely wants to know and obviously needs to know, and material that I want to have answered somewhere on my website, be it on our domains product page, on our knowledge base, on our blog, somewhere where our audience can really discover that information and enter our site. So just to review, again, Answer the Public is going to be used for keyword research. It's a great opportunity for us to discover new long-tail keywords that utilizes really the words of our audience. And again, going to be utilized mostly for the blog, KB, and FAQ content here. So I wanted to ask you guys, how often do you guys utilize SEO tools for the ones who are using SEO tools before adding or changing our content? Great, that should about do it. About 80% of us aren't using tools for content. I hope this last section really just showcases how important using tools can be, not only just to make our lives easier, but obviously we're getting that immediate, not immediate, but close to immediate feedback really from the results of our optimizations. Great. So moving on to our next tip, which is really all about keyword research. We learned about all the tools that we're using for it, but now how do we really think about keyword research? Now, it comes as no surprise that keyword research might be one of the most single important areas of SEO. Really, without it, we're limiting the SEO program and leaving a lot of potential traffic and revenue just on the table. And keyword research is really all about getting into the mindset of our audience. Who are they? Why are they searching for these keywords? And how are people in my industry, my competition, formatting their content, especially the ones who are in dominant SERP positions? What type of medium does my audience want to take their content in? Is it through videos? Is it through infographics, blog articles? And when we're asking ourselves these questions before we start any campaign or optimization project, you'll find that writing content not only becomes more comfortable and easier, but we're seeing those results come in that much quicker. And really the SEO tip here is don't reinvent the wheel. See what your competition is formatting their content like and pay extra close attention to the competitors in positions 1 through 3, since that is what Google is feeling comfortable enough to showcase as their primary sources for that query. And of course, we can't talk about keywords without talking about head terms versus long tail keywords. A great graph on the right just showcases the differences here, but really we're just talking about trade-offs between monthly search volume, competition, and really the stage in the buying funnel or the customer journey. And what that means is we're taking a look at a head term, for instance, like fishing rods versus a middle keyword like saltwater fishing rods versus a long tail query like best carbon fiber fishing rods. And if we were to throw in another keyword that's very deep in the customer journey, something like buy saltwater fishing rods. Different levels of intent in the keywords provide drastically different SERPs. So really just ranging from informational type of SERPs to transactional types. So the closer we get towards buying intent, the more competitive that space becomes, generally speaking. And also, generally speaking, the more expensive it becomes from a paid ads perspective. So let's walk you guys through just some general keyword research utilizing some of the tools that we had just covered. As we had just learned, Answer the Public is mainly for keywords and topics. Keyword Planner is really just for discovering related keywords and getting their respective monthly search volume and seasonality, while Google Features helps us expose additional long tail queries. So if I'm writing about fishing, maybe I'll type fishing into Answer the Public to discover just some possible keywords that I may want to pursue. In this example that goes clockwise, starting at top left, I discover in the what tree topics like this: what fishing line to use for carp, what fishing line do I need, what fishing season. And as I'm going through this tree, a couple of keywords are sticking out to me. So I'll type that into Keyword Planner. So topics like fishing license, fishing line, fishing season, fishing tackle, and I'm getting my results back in form of average monthly searches and the competition. And what really sticks out to me here is obviously the seasonality, as we saw before, the drop off in the winter and fall months with the immediate spike back up going into spring and summer. And in this pack of 4, let's say I want to write about fishing line, which has 22.2 thousand monthly search volume, but high competition. And I bet if I honed in on that keyword and discovered some of the additional long tail queries that the competition is going to drop off. And we see that on the bottom right. So if I typed in fishing line specifically, I would get some additional results like what pound fishing line to use, what pound test for bass, what is a fishing line made of. And if I type those into Google search, I get some additional people also ask questions as well. So things like, what is the best fishing line? What are the 4 types of fishing line? And if I am a small brand who doesn't really have the capacity of a Cabela's, let's say, and I can't really have that kind of spend in paid advertisement or content creation, I'm definitely going to choose an article that sees, or keyword rather, that has less monthly search volume, but the trade-off is significantly less competition. So I may want to be the #1 result for a long tail query like that. So starting off, we're going to pick our topic, in this case, something in the realm of what pound fishing line to use. From there, I'll choose my keywords that I want to make sure that we have a nice density, and we're using these keywords within everything from the metadata, like the page title, meta description, to our header tags, H1s, H2s, making sure we have some FAQs in there. So keywords like what pound test for bass, which has 590 monthly search volume, what pound test for bass, 140, what pound line for bass, 110. And looking at these monthly search volumes in the competitive space, I'll begin to write out my metadata. So if I'm writing a blog article, the page title may look something like this: what pound test for bass is best, with the 2021 in brackets. That just helps with the click-through rate on articles like this. And we need to think about what the purpose of this page is. Is it just to inform our customers and our audiences of what pound fishing line to use for bass? Or is it, do we want to push them further into our buying journey or the buying funnel? So I may include CTAs like this scattered throughout the article. So maybe a CTA that's centered on best overall fishing line with a link to an example product on our website, followed by best budget fishing line, best premium fishing line, and just making sure that we have some nice CTAs and links that go deeper into our site architecture. So 3, which is leveraging Google Search Console. And as I've said in previous webinars, Google Search Console is one of the few ways we're getting any source of truth from Google. Lots of great information is being obtained through here. Everything from core web vital performance, our structured data sets, site maps, security issues. Obviously, we have our index coverage report, which analyzes technical performance of every page on our websites. But we're also getting performance updates from Google. So we can see the average positions of our keywords, and we can see how many clicks we're getting from each of those individual keywords and whether or not performance is improving or declining. And we're going to be using this set of data specifically to optimize our content. So if you have Search Console, on the far left, you'll see a section called Performance, and underneath it, it says Search Results. When we click on that, we're going to get a readout of our site's performance in organic search over the last 3 months. And if we were to set a comparison, so we're just comparing our clicks over the past 3 months versus the previous 3 months, we can see which queries or which keywords really have been improving or decreasing in performance. After an optimization campaign, I'll be in Google Search Console almost on a weekly basis, if not more, just to see if the clicks that I've built content around or the queries that I built content around are improving or staying stagnant. And from there, we can really just do one of 2 things. If they're increasing, I am verifying the keyword and page targeting. By page targeting, what I mean is, am I chasing after this keyword or targeting it on just 1 or 2 pages, or is it scattered across 10 or 15? Because the latter is definitely not great for SEO, because that's reinforcing too many pages to Google. So Google won't really have a knowledge or an understanding really of which page they should be promoting in the SERP. Is it page 1 or is it page 11 or 15? If we were to decrease that and make it only 1, 2 pages at the most, then we're sending a very strong intent and signal to Google saying, this is the one page on our website that is targeting XYZ keyword, and you should be servicing this in the SERP. So A, am I diluting that keyword across too many pages? B, is it in the page title, the H1, the meta description? What's the click-through rate for this query given its relative position? And if it is growing, but very, very slowly, I'll go back to the content and add some additional relevant material. Emphasis on relevant. No need for content stuffing or keyword stuffing or anything like that. We want legitimate, well-written content, but making sure that we're reinforcing the content around specific keywords. And if performance is decreasing, so I'm seeing decreased clicks over the last 3 months, the process is honestly much the same. I'm going back into the page, going into the metadata to verify if everything is targeted and working as intended, adding brand new content segments around queries that are not doing so well. So, and then lastly, I'll be going into the competitive landscape. So if I see the performance going down and I click on a performance like beach decor, I'll type in beach decor into Google search and see how my top competitors, especially those in positions 1 through 3, are styling their content. Are they surfacing videos, infographics, a link somewhere else? How are they performing or how are they styling their content to warrant a position 1 through 3? And then from there, I'll just try to emulate what they're doing. Site structure. So what is site structure? It's simply how we organize our website and its pages. Site structure tells search engines which pages on our website are really most important, and how we're styling our URL is really affecting that organization. Now, obviously, as sites grow, especially on the e-commerce platforms, we will inevitably grow more cluttered over time, which is why performing routine maintenance ensures critical pages aren't being orphaned off and that we have organized internal links throughout the rest of the site architecture. An example of a nice, wide, but shallow architecture is up top. So we have our homepage at the very top, followed by the category level pages, followed by some product pages. That's a nice architecture. There's nothing being lost here. Everything's very clearly organized. And if I am a new user to a website, I have a understanding, or at least a basis of understanding of how I can navigate to other pages that are linked to on the site. As opposed to the example on the bottom, where obviously very poor organization. If I am a search engine bot or just a brand new user to your website, I have almost no idea of how I can really access another page that I may want to go to on that website. And this is especially concerning if these pages are so unorganized that we don't have a optimal buying funnel. So if we're making it so difficult for a user to convert on our website, the odds are they won't. And on the bottom right, what's really terrible is having pages orphaned off from the rest of the site architecture. So orphaned off just means not having any internal links going to and from the rest of the organization. So there's really no way to really enter this site unless you have a direct bookmark. Oftentimes for organic search purposes, Googlebot will not even index a page that is orphaned. So again, regular maintenance, regular audits of your site to make sure that critical pages aren't being orphaned off. And as I said before, how you organize your URL really does affect your site architecture. So I want to break down the anatomy of a URL for you real quick. We always start off with a protocol, so that's going to be the HTTPS. The S signifies that we have a secure socket layer or an SSL attached to the domain, makes it more protected. If you are in the e-commerce space, that is especially important, and odds are, if you are in e-commerce, you probably already have one. The www designates the subdomain. The area in orange, so micro-fishing, would be the actual domain name, followed by .com, which is our domain name extension, also called the TLD, or the top-level domain. The area in pink is our subdirectory, or our subfolder, which would be that second-level category that you saw on our architecture in the previous slide, followed by the area in black, which is our path, or our file, also called page, which is fly fishing rod. And that entire area in pink and black together is called collectively the URL slug. And as far as basics going into making sure that your URLs are SEO friendly URLs really do improve user experience, making it easier for them to understand your architecture and your organization and really how to go up a level or down a level in categorization. And obviously, we're not doing it just for the UX. It does improve search engine performance as well. And there are just some basics going into creating a SEO-friendly URL. It's just to make sure that we're including our primary keyword within the URL for the page, avoiding numbers and special characters, avoiding any form of capitalization, and making sure that we're keeping it short and concise. So to give you an example, www.profishing.com/fishing will be SEO friendly, followed by /fishing/fishing lines. Nothing confusing, properly placed, not too long, no numbers, nothing like that. As far as non-SEO friendly URLs, so the first example will be the exact same first example, but with capitals. URLs can be case sensitive, which is why we always recommend making sure that it's very consistently just lowercase, followed by an example like /fishing/$123 Very poor. There's no keyword following the phishing, so very unoptimized here. And obviously the last example, .com/shop/home/category. I mean, I'm getting tired just saying it. It's too long-winded. There's almost keyword stuffing going on here. And a user, when I see that URL, no idea what's going on really. Now our last tip is structured data. So what is structured data? Schema.org is a semantic vocabulary of tags or microdata that you can add to your HTML to improve the way search engines read and represent your pages in the SERP. A bit long-winded, but essentially the basic understanding here is that Google was not always as good as it is today. There was no AI or machine learning back in the early days of the web. And let's just say that websites weren't exactly clean or aesthetic in the early 2000s from either a coding or a visual perspective. So things on a page like paid product information, like the brand, price, reviews, were sometimes tricky to find. So structured data was created as a way for us to kind of piece search engine bots. And it's really just a snippet of code, as you can see in the right-hand side, that points Googlebot in the right direction of some particular information that we want them to know. Consider it almost like a cheat sheet for bots. And we're just letting them know exactly the information they want across a multitude of different types of schema. And that really ranges from things like product schema to what you're seeing on the board right now, which is recipe schema. There's also FAQ schema, organizational schema, and these things reveal anything from business hours to FAQ questions, operation locations, and customer support numbers. So on the right-hand side, as I mentioned before, is an example of how that would look in the actual HTML versus how they appear in the SERP. So by having structured data, we can achieve what's called enriched snippets. That can be anything from obtaining a carousel pack up top on page 1 like this, which is very, very great, or something like this on the bottom left, which is at the very least having the stars for our rating, the number of votes. So this is recipe schema, so we get our picture, the rating, the votes, the time it takes for the recipe, and how many calories. And the reason why that's so important, just showcasing a real example of clam chowder recipes on the left versus the right. Obviously on the left, we have much more aesthetic looking SERP results. So we have the rating, we have the votes, the calories, and it's just day and night compared to the example on the right with no enriched snippets. Anytime we have an opportunity to have a more favorable outlook or appearance in the SERP, we should definitely be on it. And the types of schema markup really do vary. As I mentioned before, it could be something like organizational schema, which is something you want to have on your home page and your About Us/contact page, which has information like your marketing details, your business information, social profiles is going to be big on that one. Your product schema is going to have your reviews, your price, your sales, the availability of it. If you have a blog with some consistent guest authors or even authors on your actual blog, we can highlight who the author is, the headlines, the images, the published dates. Very, very important. And things like FAQ, especially for e-commerce pages or e-commerce websites that have nicely written FAQs for their products, we should definitely be having those show up in the SERP as well by having some enriched snippets around that. Some useful links up top. The bottom one is a testing tool, so you can actually test your schema to make sure that it's either the code is working properly. You can actually just put in your code right there, or type in one of your URLs to see if the schema on your website is working as intended. And then up top is our markup helper, which is a tool straight from Google. It actually provides the schema for you as long as you put in the inputs. So lots of material that we covered today. We really just covered, utilizing your SEO tools whenever possible and how we can be utilizing free tools on a daily basis. Two, we covered how we should be thinking about keyword research and really how we can utilize the tools to go about it. Third, we covered Google Search Console and how we should be utilizing that to not only monitor our performance from our optimizations, but also to really just help that optimization process by determining which clicks are going up or down over time, as well as how we should be optimizing and organizing our site structure, followed up by how we can use structured data for better SERP real estate. That really does conclude today's webinar. We have some time for Q&A now. Great. So one of the first question is, how can we actually get the recording of this webinar? I believe these should be uploaded to our blog after the fact, and there should be an email going out after the end of the webinar today. Is Google Search Console a part of Google Analytics, or is it a separate program? It's actually separate. They do go hand in hand. They're both Google's freemium tools. I believe that within Google Analytics, there's actually a section for Google Search Console data, but they are separate. You'll have to create your Google Search Console separately from your Google Analytics, but there's a way for them to be tied together. And are schemas special APIs that need to be developed with code, or are there free tools that format specific schema for the client? It's no special API or anything like that. You can actually just write it yourself within Notepad or Notepad++, which is what I use. But there's actually some tools online. If you just type in structured data creator or schema creator, there are various tools online that you can utilize that would be able to just churn out the material for you. For instance, I believe there's one dedicated for just FAQs, and you just type in what your FAQ question is and the answer, and it'll just generate the schema for you. And then from there, it's all about just taking that HTML code and just putting it right into the source code. Next question, wouldn't be using the year 2021 in our keywords make our content irrelevant down the road? Definitely so if we just leave it as 2021, which is why having some consistent optimization on stale posts. So, on a quarterly basis, I would recommend you go through your top blog posts or even all your blog posts if you're pending years on them, just making sure that the information is staying as relevant as possible. We always talk about evergreen material on your website, or material that stays fresh since the material or the subject matter doesn't really change over time. So things like how to buy a domain, for instance, for our industry stays rather consistent on a yearly basis. So all that really takes is making sure that we're making some tweaks over time just to make sure the information is centered on being more modern. So absolutely, Cindy, you want to be making sure that as time goes by, you're replacing that 2021 with 2022. They did a study a few years back on whether or not appending the current year in brackets like that affects click-through rate, and the evidence showed that overwhelmingly that it does. And is it similar to other search engines? For the most part, yes, but primarily, especially within the US, we're definitely talking about Google when it comes to search engine optimization. It provides, for most websites, anything between 80 to 95% of their organic traffic. And okay, so next question, the information Google reports like analytics comes from my business website or from the Google website business. for Google Search Console, what you're seeing in that query data is anytime somebody actually typed that query into Google Search and used that search to enter your website. So it's basically the source of truth for how people are visiting your site from an organic standpoint, which is why we need to have very close scrutiny on what keywords, what types of language users are using to enter our site. So if I see a lot of clicks around beach decor, I definitely want to be making sure that I have content that utilizes the words beach decor throughout my page. And is there a general number of keywords that should be generated, or should it scale with the size of a client's needs? Is 150 short tail a good start? So that's a tricky question. There's no real right or wrong answer to that. It really just depends on the scale of your business and the size of your enterprise. Obviously, not everyone in the room is going to have the opportunity or really the scaling available to write, let's say 20 blog posts a month. That's just not really feasible for a lot of us. So it makes a lot more sense to pick a couple of keywords and dominate those. Rather be a master of a few than be spread and diluted across too many. So 150 short tail, is that a great start? Definitely. It depends on the case. I would say, if it's 150 monthly search volume, we should definitely be trying to write content that is position one, for a keyword like that. Are there other tools to help capture audiences with a structured layout aesthetically or in an orderly yet simple structure? I would say a tool like Screaming Frog definitely showcases the hierarchy of our pages pretty well. I'm not exactly sure how many pages you can audit with the free version of Screaming Frog, but I think it's close to either 100 or 500. And from there, it's really just about making sure you're doing regular audits of your website, making sure that nothing takes too many clicks from your homepage, since that's probably going to be your most visited organic page. So making sure that any purchase page, any product page is, and again, it really just depends on the size of your business and the size of your website, but we try to keep it ideally, 3 to 5 clicks away from your homepage is probably the absolute max you want to be. Yes, I believe that these questions will be a part of the overall recording. To answer one of the questions here, I believe our next webinar will actually not be centered on SEO. It will be based on CLM or email marketing. But I believe we will have some additional SEO webinars lined up for either the end of this year or the beginning of the next. And Christopher had asked, under Google Search Console, those keywords captured, is it from our site or any of the most searched keywords? So it's actually just, depending on how you organize the table, it's just the most used queries and keywords that people have used to enter your site organically. Great. That looks to be about most of the questions here. Thank you guys all for joining us again. Really enjoyed my time here with you guys. If you guys have any further questions, definitely feel free to reach out. This will be, again, recorded and sent out to all of you. Thanks again, guys. Take care.